What if one man could take every sound you've ever heard, rock, funk, pop, soul, jazz, and fuse it into something the world didn't even have a name for yet? Before The Weeknd, before Bruno Mars, before modern pop even knew what genre bending meant, there was Prince. He didn't just make songs. He rewired the DNA of popular music. He blurred gender, defied record labels, and built a universe where creativity was freedom, and freedom came with a cost. Because behind the purple glow and the myth of genius was a man at war with the industry, with identity, with himself. How did a shy kid from Minneapolis become a godlike figure who terrified record executives and inspired generations? And what did it cost him to stay in control of his art, even to the very end? This is the untold story of how Prince changed the sound of the world and why decades later we're still trying to understand the man behind the symbol. In 1958, America was glowing with the illusion of progress. The radio was polished, clean, and corporate. Crooners, surf rockers, and Motown harmonies filled the air. But underneath that shine, something raw was building in garage bands, in basement jam sessions, in places where rules didn't matter. Nowhere felt that tension more quietly than Minneapolis, a northern city with Midwest politeness on the surface, but a deep current of segregation, winter isolation, and hidden creativity running through its veins. Music here wasn't about fame yet. It was about escape. Quick reality check. Meanwhile, across town, a little boy named Prince Rogers Nelson was learning how sound could be both freedom and protection. Born June 7th, 1958 in Minneapolis, he was the child of music before he was the child of fame. His father, John L. Nelson, played jazz piano. His mother, Mattie Shaw, was a singer. Their relationship was beautiful and broken, and Prince was watching it all. He learned early that music could fill silence or drown out pain. By 7, he was teaching himself piano. By 12, guitar. By 14, drums. No one told him what chords to play. He just listened, absorbed, repeated. He didn't wait for permission. Hold that sound in your head. Now add the world he was growing up in, the early 1970s, a time when funk ruled the underground but not the charts. Minneapolis wasn't Los Angeles or New York. There were no major labels waiting around the corner, but there was a generation of kids blending rock guitars with funk grooves and soul harmonies in garages and high school gyms. Prince was one of them. He joined his first band, Grand Central, with friends from school. They played basement parties, talent shows, small gigs, anywhere that had an outlet and a crowd. They were teenagers making a sound that didn't exist yet, something tight, funky, and electronic before the Minneapolis Sound even had a name. Here's the piece almost everyone misses. Prince wasn't born a prodigy in a spotlight. He built his genius like a machine in motion, practice after practice, failure after failure, until perfection became muscle memory. He wasn't chasing stardom, he was chasing mastery. By the mid-1970s, he was writing, arranging, and recording his own demos. Alone, every instrument, every vocal, every sound. At 16, while most kids were figuring out who they wanted to be, Prince had already decided he wanted full control of his image, his sound, his destiny. Quick reality check. Across the industry, major labels were still signing bands, not one-man armies. But this quiet, self-contained teenager from Minneapolis, he was something new. Word spread through the local scene. There was a kid who could play everything. By 18, he landed a deal with Warner Brothers Records, a contract that gave him something unheard of for a new artist, total creative control. That control would define him for the rest of his life. In 1978, he released his debut album, For You. He wrote, produced, arranged, and performed it almost entirely alone. It didn't top the charts, but it proved something powerful. Prince didn't need the machine. He could build his own. Here's the thing. The world had no idea what was coming. Behind that soft-spoken teenager was a storm. He'd spent his childhood absorbing every sound, every rhythm, every heartbreak. And now, with a guitar in his hands and a contract in his pocket, he was ready to flip the industry upside down because the kid from Minneapolis wasn't trying to fit in. He was about to change what pop, funk, and even identity itself could sound like. End on a slow fade of Prince's early studio photo or debut album cover. Next chapter, Breakthrough in Purple Rain. After years of playing alone in basement studios, something finally clicked. Prince had always believed he could do it his way, no producers, no filters, no compromises. But in 1982, the world finally caught up. That's when 1999 dropped, and for the first time, the sound of Minneapolis didn't just belong to the Midwest, it belonged to the planet. It was a wild mix of funk bass lines, new wave synths, rock guitars, and electronic drums that hit like lightning. No one had heard anything like it. After that record hit, the room tilted. The first time people heard 1999 or Little Red Corvette, they didn't know whether to dance or just stare. It didn't sound like the funk they knew or the rock they grew up with. It sounded like the future, machine rhythms pulsing beneath soulful vocals, neon melodies wrapped around darkness and desire. Freeze the frame, listen to that Little Red Corvette hook one more time, that shimmer of guitar, the pulse that refuses to quit, the way Prince's voice slides between innocence and danger. That was the sound of a new decade being born, a sound that made both the kids and the critics nervous. Because here's the thing, Prince wasn't just experimenting with music, he was rewriting the rules of what a pop star could be. He wore lace and heels on stage, but shredded a guitar like Hendrix. He made love songs sound like political acts. He blurred gender, race, and genre without ever asking for approval. Quick reality check. Meanwhile, across the country, MTV was rising fast. But in its early days, it was nearly all white rock acts. Then came Prince, a black artist from Minneapolis, singing about sex, freedom, and apocalypse, and they couldn't ignore him anymore. When 1999's videos hit the airwaves, it wasn't just music, it was a cultural explosion. Purple lights, fog machines, sweat, and synths. He made television feel dangerous again. Numbers don't tell it. This clip does. Prince spinning on stage, guitar strapped high, eyes burning straight through the lens. You could feel the moment he stopped being a promising newcomer and became a movement. And just as the world tried to define him, he moved again. 2 years later, in 1984, he detonated with Purple Rain, an album, a film, a manifesto. When that opening guitar from Let's Go Crazy hit, you could almost hear pop history cracking open. The song wasn't just a hit, it was a sermon. Part rock anthem, part gospel, part funk riot. It told every outsider, every misfit, every dreamer, go crazy if you must, but do it on your own terms. Purple Rain. The movie wasn't supposed to work. A semi-autobiographical film starring a musician with no acting background. Hollywood didn't expect much, but audiences saw something raw and real. They saw a black artist from the Midwest turn his pain, his rebellion, and his genius into a myth. When Doves Cry hit number 1, a song with no bass line against every radio rule, even the critics who mocked him had to shut up. It wasn't supposed to sound good, but it did. And that was Prince, proving the impossible could sound perfect. And then the backlash landed. Some called it too sexual, too strange, too synthetic. But every insult just proved the point. Prince wasn't making music for approval. He was forcing pop to evolve. Here's the piece almost everyone misses. 1999 and Purple Rain didn't just sell millions. They tore down the idea that music had to stay in its lane. Funk could be rock. Rock could be pop. Pop could be rebellion. And Prince could be all of it at once. By the time Purple Rain's tour ended, he wasn't just a star. He was a symbol, a new kind of artist who refused to be defined. On stage, he wasn't performing. He was transforming. Crowds didn't just watch him, they followed him. And somewhere between the glitter and the gospel, the world realized this wasn't a phase. Prince had changed the sound of pop forever, and the industry would spend the next decade trying to catch up. But every rise has a price, because the higher you go, the more control you fight to keep. And for Prince, control wasn't a luxury, it was everything. Next chapter: artistic control, innovation, and conflict. By the mid-1980s, Prince wasn't just famous, he was magnetic, dangerous, and impossible to pin down. He'd built his own universe, and anyone who stepped inside it had to play by his rules. He didn't just sell records, he sold permission. Permission to dress how you wanted, love who you wanted, move however you felt. Prince gave kids a new language, a uniform of lace, leather, and confidence. Parents didn't understand him, critics couldn't categorize him, but the fans, they saw freedom wrapped in purple velvet. Quick reality check. By 1987, the world was deep in the afterglow of Purple Rain, and Prince could have stayed safe, printing hits on demand. Instead, he built Paisley Park, his own creative fortress in Chanhassen, Minnesota. Part studio, part sanctuary, part mystery. From the outside, it looked like a warehouse. Inside, it was a kingdom where everything, sound, image, light, answered to one man. He called it the Park, and within those walls he wrote, recorded, and filmed almost non-stop. Dozens of songs, side projects, and secret sessions flowed from its rooms. He didn't just create albums, he created worlds. Hold that image: Prince alone in a room, recording every instrument, chasing a rhythm until sunrise. He was obsessed with control, not because he didn't trust others, but because he heard things no one else did. Solo the drum machine for a second, that tight robotic snap. That's the Lin LM1, Prince's weapon of choice. He programmed it himself, squeezing funk out of cold circuitry. He'd layer those machine beats with live guitars and bass until it felt both human and digital, a sound that would define pop for decades. And then he'd throw in something unexpected, a gospel chord, a scream, a pause that hung just long enough to make your heart jump. That was the trick. Machine precision meets pure emotion. One studio trick you can't unhear after this: Prince never left silence empty. Even his rests had rhythm, a breath, a glance, a whisper of reverb that made space feel alive. He turned negative space into another instrument. That's why copycats never quite felt right. They could mimic his chords, his clothes, his attitude, but they couldn't fake his feel. Prince's music didn't just play in time, it bent time. It moved like conversation, unpredictable, playful, and always personal. Meanwhile, the myth machine was running full speed. Rumors swirled around his relationships, his sexuality, his ego, his refusal to explain himself. Talk shows wanted sound bites. Prince gave them silence. He understood something most stars never do: the less you say, the louder your art speaks. Still, the industry didn't like how much power he held. Warner Brothers wanted more hits, faster albums, more tours. Prince wanted freedom, the right to release music when he felt it was ready, not when accountants said it would sell. That's when the war began. By the early 90s, his frustration exploded into rebellion. He changed his name to an unpronounceable symbol. Part male, part female, part nothing the label could trademark. He performed with the word slave written across his face. It wasn't a stunt, it was a message. Art can't belong to the system, to the press. It looked insane to musicians. It looked like revolution. He was breaking free in real time, daring anyone to stop him. Freeze that frame. 1993, a stage bathed in purple. Prince standing in silence. That image wasn't ego, it was protest. Inside Paisley Park, the work never stopped. He released underside projects, secret aliases, even gave songs away to others just to stay moving. His vault grew, thousands of unreleased tracks stacked behind locked doors, some rough, some fully mixed, some no one's ever heard. Think about that. An artist so prolific, he had to hide his own work to keep the world from drowning in it. It wasn't about greed, it was about space. He needed room to stay inspired. Here's what made him iconic and dangerous at the same time. He proved that art could live outside the system and still matter. He made pop music spiritual. He made rebellion sound beautiful. Underneath the lace and the lights was the craft, the perfect timing, the fearless production, the sense that every note meant something. Pull out the drum machine, the funk bass, or his trembling falsetto, and the whole thing collapses. Every layer, every silence, every scream was essential. Prince didn't just ride success, he challenged the very idea of success. While others chased fame, he built legacy. While others played the game, he rewrote it. By the late 90s, the world still didn't fully understand him, but they couldn't look away because every time he stepped on stage, he reminded them this wasn't just music. It was art, identity, and defiance fused into sound. And as the industry tried to cage him, he built his own kingdom, a purple empire powered by rhythm, secrecy, and total control. But freedom always has a cost. And the next chapter of Prince's story would test just how much one artist could sacrifice for his own name. Next chapter, legacy, influence, and the purple afterglow.
This video is sponsored by The Lore Store on Amazon, your one-stop shop for music lovers across reggae, rock, pop, and hip-hop. We built it for real listeners who don't want to dig through 1,000 listings to find the right gear. Inside The Lore Store, you'll find 5 aisles. VIP, top, battle-tested essentials, headphones, turntables, speakers, gig-safe earplugs, smart speakers. Reggae vibe, roots and lovers. Rock made easy, automatic decks, warm bookshelf speakers, vinyl care. Rock lore, classic rock must-haves, open back cans, simple amps, living room concert vibes. Pop lore, feel-good everyday setups, clean, clear speakers, easy streaming, nostalgia-friendly picks. Hip-hop must-haves, punchy bass without the muddle, closed-back headphones and living room systems that handle low-end, plus a rotating crate of old album vinyl if you're rebuilding a 60s-90s collection. Every product page tells you who it's for, 3 pros, 1 con, and why we picked it. So you can choose with confidence. Flying soon? Check. VIP for noise canceling that tames plane roar. Mostly listening at home? Try open-back headphones that let live albums breathe. Want instant gratification vinyl? Our fully automatic turntable is 1 button from silence to music, and the record cleaning kit knocks down crackle so the bass tightens up. Headed to shows? Grab high-fidelity earplugs. Hands-free at home? Our smart speaker picks let you say, play 70s reggae or classic pop, and you're there. Deal alert! If you use the link in the description, you'll land on our curated picks with current best available Amazon pricing and active discounts where applicable. Prices change, so buy now to lock in today's deal. Tap the link in the description, pick your aisle, grab a favorite, and tell me which category you want me to build next. The Lore Store. Listen better, with gear that gets out of the way and lets the music live.
There's a moment in every legend story when the spotlight starts to burn instead of shine. For Prince, it wasn't one big explosion, and it was a slow tightening of the walls he built for himself. We've seen the rise, the glory, the genius. Now let's sit with the cost, because behind the posters, the Grammys, and the purple lights, there was a price tag: sleep, blood, sanity. By the early 1990s, the grind was catching up. Years of endless touring, label fights, studio marathons, it all stacked up. Prince didn't rest. He couldn't. The man lived in 4/4 time. If he wasn't writing, he was rehearsing. If he wasn't rehearsing, he was performing. If he wasn't performing, he was recording the performance. Freeze it there. Think of the math. Hundreds of shows, thousands of hours in Paisley Park. Millions of fans expecting the next masterpiece. That kind of pressure doesn't just drain you, it warps you. And the industry, they were still trying to own him. Even after his name changed, the lawsuits, the protests, the machine didn't stop. It just changed shape. He'd won his freedom from Warner Brothers, but independence came with a new kind of isolation. No label meant no protection, no safety net, no marketing army. Prince was finally free, but freedom is lonely when you've built your own universe. The late 90s brought new battles, money splits, rights disputes, the slow fade of radio airplay. He was still brilliant, still working, but the world's attention was shifting. New stars were rewriting pop in his shadow, and while they borrowed from him, they rarely mentioned his name. Let's sit with this for a second. Imagine being the artist who invented the sound of a generation and watching that generation move on. Prince never stopped creating, but his experiments, the Gold Experience, Crystal Ball, Rave Unto, The Joy Fantastic, they didn't dominate the charts like Purple Rain did, and that's when the press started writing him off, calling him difficult, out of touch, eccentric. Words they use when they can't control you anymore. The human cost started to show. Friends and collaborators drifted away. Some said he pushed them out. Others said he just disappeared into his work. There were stories of exhaustion, pain, even isolation at Paisley Park, rooms full of instruments but no one left to play them with. His private life stayed private, but whispers of physical strain began to surface. Years of performing in heels, splits, spins, endless rehearsals, his body had taken a beating. Behind the mystique, there was a man trying to keep up with his own legend. Listen to how the tempo feels heavier now. This is the part fans don't put on t-shirts. By the 2000s, Prince had become both everywhere and nowhere. Still revered, still respected, but outside the mainstream radar. He kept releasing music, quietly, defiantly, through his website, his own label, even mail-order CDs. He didn't care about charts anymore. He cared about control. But even that control had limits. On April 21st, 2016, the unthinkable happened. Prince was found unresponsive at Paisley Park, the same fortress that had protected him for decades. The cause? An accidental overdose. The shock rippled across the world, not just because he was gone, but because no one could imagine him dying. Freeze that frame again. The man who fought for independence, who wrote his own laws, who refused to let the industry, the critics, or the culture define him, was suddenly mortal. It didn't bruise the legend, it changed the chemistry. Most acts fade quietly. Prince didn't fade. He detonated, and in that instant, everything froze. The voice, the swagger, the sound. The myth was complete, but even in loss, he left a roadmap. Every artist who mixes genres, every performer who blurs gender, every musician who builds a home studio to stay independent, they're standing in his shadow, whether they know it or not. Bruno Mars, Janelle Monáe, The Weeknd, Frank Ocean, Beyoncé. You can hear pieces of him in all of them. The funk grooves, the synth lines, the androgynous flair, the ownership of identity. Prince's fingerprints are everywhere. And that's the strange beauty of it. Even as his commercial reign ended, his influence deepened. He didn't need charts to stay relevant. He lived in the DNA of pop, rock, R&B, and funk. Fashion, gender, stagecraft, musicianship, all rewritten in purple ink. Prince's story reminds us that genius isn't just about success, it's about sacrifice. He gave everything, his comfort, his relationships, his anonymity, to make music that outlives him. So when you hear that opening riff of When Doves Cry or see a stage lit in violet glow, remember, you're not just hearing a song, you're hearing a man who refused to be owned and paid the price for his freedom. And even now, the echoes still ask the same question. How far would you go to stay true to your art? Next chapter, After the Storm. The legacy of a purple revolution.
Hey, Pop Lore family. Did you know only 1% of viewers are subscribed? If you love deep dives into pop legends, forgotten gems, and the stories behind the songs that shaped generations, hit that subscribe button right now. And don't forget to turn on LL notifications so you'll be the first to know when we premiere our next video. It's free, it helps pop lore grow, and it makes sure you never miss a single countdown or music story. Let's build this community together.
When a legend dies, the music usually fades with them, but Prince, his sound didn't fade, it multiplied. Every beat that slaps, every synth that screams, every artist who refuses to fit in a box, that's the echo of Prince. Before him, pop was clean, predictable, safe. After him, everyone was chasing something they couldn't quite name, a feeling, a pulse, a freedom that sounded like electricity wearing heels. Spot the lineage, hear the Weeknd's slick falsetto, that's Prince. Watch Janelle Monáe command a stage in a tuxedo and boots, that's Prince. Bruno Mars's grooves, Frank Ocean's vulnerability, even Harry Styles' fashion choices, all purple fingerprints. But it's more than influence, it's inheritance. Prince didn't just pass down songs, he passed down permission. Permission to be weird. Permission to blur the line between masculine and feminine, black and white, sacred and sexual, human and divine. Every artist who dares to own their sound today is borrowing a page from his playbook, even if they've never heard Purple Rain. And here's one sample you've heard 1,000 times, snippets of Kiss, Erotic City, 1999, scattered across modern pop, hip-hop, and R&B. They live in our headphones, our playlists, our parties, woven so deep that the echo feels like memory. After his death in 2016, the world didn't just mourn, it paused. Cities lit up in purple. Fans sang Purple Rain in the streets. Under thunderstorms, murals appeared overnight. Faces of Prince staring back from walls in London, Lagos, Minneapolis. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was recognition. People realized that someone who'd always seemed too strange, too bold, too much, had actually been ahead the whole time. Freeze that image for a second. A man who fought the system, who changed his name to a symbol no one could pronounce, who refused to play by the rules of the music business, and in doing so, rewrote those rules for everyone who came after. Now the story lives on in a new way, through archives, reissues, and that mythical vault. The one locked deep in Paisley Park, rumored to hold thousands of unreleased songs, demos, entire albums no one's ever heard. Some call it his final act of rebellion, art too pure for the market. Others see it as his promise to the future, that the world will keep discovering him piece by piece. Every new release from that vault is a postcard from the past, proof that Prince's story isn't over. It's still unfolding, even in his final years. He was still creating, still performing, still challenging the norm. Tours like Piano and a Microphone stripped away the spectacle and showed the man behind the myth, alone on stage, telling stories, playing songs that sounded like confessions. It was haunting, beautiful, human, and maybe that's how he wanted to be remembered, not just as an icon, but as an artist still in motion. Fast forward to today. A 2025 listener doesn't hear Prince the way the world did in 1984. Back then he was shock and scandal, leather and lace and mystery. Now he's blueprint and backbone. You can hear him in bedroom producers, mixing funk with trap, in queer artists, using music as protest, in every performer daring to be both masculine and feminine, church and club, sinner and saint. He's not an artifact. He's a living language. Before Prince, pop sounded like categories. After Prince, it sounded like freedom. He broke the system so others could walk through. If you were there, you already knew. If you weren't, now you do. So here's your turn. What was the first Prince song that hit you in the chest? Was it When Doves Cry, Kiss, 1999, or something buried in a playlist you can't stop replaying? Drop it in the comments. I'll pin the best ones in the Purple Legacy playlist. Because this isn't just history, it's inheritance. And it only stays alive if we keep telling it. This is Pop Lore, where we trace the sound that changed the world and make sure the algorithm doesn't erase it. Subscribe, share, and hit the next episode where we dive into the next revolution. How another artist took Prince's fire and built a new world from its ashes. The echo is still ringing. The invite is yours.